Picture this, it's late winter, early spring of 2019. In a span of just a few short months, 14 U.S. states stretching from North Dakota all the way down to Louisiana were completely smothered by historic flooding. Then, a severe winter storm just slammed the high plains right in the middle of spring, stranding people and livestock, and right after that, in April and May, an outbreak of over 500 tornadoes flattened towns across the central U.S. You know, these aren't just isolated bad weather days anymore. They really represent a dramatic shift in how our planet's atmosphere is behaving.
So with extreme weather hitting us more frequently, growing bigger, and becoming way more intense, we really have to ask ourselves, are these events just strange anomalies, or is this the new normal for our global systems? Are these the real, tangible impacts of a warming planet that we've been warned about for decades? Well, the data we're going to look at today suggests that they absolutely are, and the implications stretch far beyond just needing to buy a stronger umbrella.
The scientific community is completely clear on this. As one researcher perfectly hit the nail on the head, climate change is not this thing that's going to happen in the future. It is happening right here and right now. We really need to shift our mindset away from treating this as some distant theoretical problem for future generations to figure out. Within the scientific community, there is literally zero debate that the planet is warming. It's unequivocal. So today, we're zeroing in on this immediate reality.
Here is our game plan for today's explainer. 1. Extreme weather right now. 2. A century of warning. 3. Reading the Earth's past. 4. Your future hometown. And 5. The global ripple effect. Let's dive in.
Starting with Section 1, Extreme Weather Right Now, and the Immediate Impacts of Heat.
Think about our planet for what it really is, a massive water world. Now, basic physics, right? When you add heat to this system, you inevitably cause more evaporation. More moisture gets trapped up there in the atmosphere, and well, what goes up must come down. This means that even in places that are historically bone dry, when it rains, it completely pours. It leads to incredibly heavy, extreme rainfall events that just overwhelm our infrastructure.
Moving on to Section 2, a century of warning, and to look at the instrumental record.
The sheer velocity of this warming trend is absolutely staggering. We've had thousands of weather stations across the globe recording temperature, rainfall, and wind for over a century now, and the data is striking. 2018 was Earth's fourth warmest year on record, sitting right behind 2015, 2016, and 2017. Even more incredibly, 9 of the 10 warmest years since 1880 have occurred just since 2005. This isn't random variation, guys. It is an undeniable, rapid upward trend in global temperatures.
But here's the crazy part. This is not a new revelation. Way back in 1859, the Irish scientist John Tyndall actually discovered that carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor all trap heat in the atmosphere. Then, by the 1890s, a Swedish scientist named Svante Arrhenius predicted that burning fossil fuels would boost that warming, and he actually coined the term greenhouse effect. They were completely spot on. By 1950, our instrumental records became highly accurate, and with modern satellites, we've been measuring exactly what Tyndall and Arrhenius warned us about literally over a century ago.
Which brings us to Section 3, Reading the Earth's Past, and Understanding Unprecedented Trajectories.
Now, you'll often hear the argument that the climate has changed naturally in the past. And yeah, that's true, but context is everything here. Scientists expect a global temperature shift of a few degrees Celsius, or roughly 5 degrees Fahrenheit, over the next several decades. When we look at Earth's history, a mere 5-degree Fahrenheit difference globally has been enough to completely reorganize the planet. That small number is literally the difference between a deep ice age and a sweltering greenhouse Earth. If we continue on our current emission path, we're expected to exceed historic changes, pushing us toward a climate that resembles the era when crocodiles lived near the North Pole. Just a couple of degrees is a massive, massive amount of climate change.
So how do we prove that today's warming is totally outside the realm of natural variability? Paleoclimatologists use something called climate proxies. Since we didn't exactly have thermometers everywhere a million years ago, scientists use these proxies as forensic evidence, natural archives hidden right in the Earth that let us reconstruct historical climate patterns going back centuries or even millions of years.
And these natural proxies are so fascinating. Old tree rings act like nature's hard drives, logging hot, cold, wet, and dry periods going back hundreds of years. Ice cores drilled from deep glaciers actually contain trapped bubbles of the ancient atmosphere, and ocean sediment cores push our records back many millions of years. When we put all these models together, they reveal one consistent, unbreakable rule. Whenever carbon dioxide levels were lower, temperatures were lower.
When carbon dioxide went up, temperatures went up. It firmly proves that the warming we're experiencing right now is completely unnatural and unprecedented.
All right, Section 4, your future hometown using the Urban Climates Mapper.
Let's bring this out of the abstract and right into your backyard. Take Washington, D.C., for example. By 2080, D.C. is projected to feel exactly like Greenwood, Mississippi does today. We're talking winters that are about 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer and a whopping 75% wetter. That's essentially morphing into a subtropical environment. Kids growing up in Washington, D.C. today are going to experience a total climate transformation to the point where they'll be telling their own kids about snow, and their kids probably won't even believe them.
And for sure, this isn't just an East Coast phenomenon. It's happening everywhere. Researchers analyzed about 540 urban areas across North America. By 2080, the weather in Miami is going to feel like southern Mexico. Minneapolis and St. Paul? Say hello to Nebraska weather. Denver and St. Louis will feel like northern Texas. The climate isn't just changing, it's fundamentally migrating, transforming the familiar hometowns we know entirely within our lifetimes.
And finally, Section 5, the global ripple effect and systems under stress.
As the overall global climate shifts, extreme weather kind of fragments across the map, devastating different regions at the same time but in totally different ways. Out west, droughts are getting worse, driving up the risk for catastrophic wildfires and just destroying air quality. In the Midwest, huge upticks in heavy rain are actively wiping out crops and messing with planting seasons. Meanwhile, down south, the intense heat is lasting longer and becoming dangerously hot.
And these stresses immediately spill over into the natural world around us. Nature is frantically trying to respond. We're already seeing spring greening happen way earlier. Birds and frogs are showing up and singing earlier in the year than they ever have before. And remarkably, plant and animal species that were previously limited to southern locations are slowly, steadily marching northward just to survive the creeping heat. The natural world is trying to adapt right in front of our eyes.
Now think about what this means for human survival, specifically our food supply. Look at the USDA ideal crop planting maps. Back in 1990, we had predictable, stable regional zones for our agriculture. Fast forward just 25 years to 2015, and boom, there's this massive northward shift in where essential crops can actually survive and thrive. The heat is moving north, and the plants are forced to move with it. The terrifying question here is, will they be able to adapt to such a rapid rate of change?
So the huge takeaway here is that the impacts go far, far beyond just environmental damage. The disruption of our food and water systems is going to create severe societal shockwaves. Extended, large-scale global droughts are going to force people to migrate to new regions just in search of water and viable land. This is going to create millions of climate migrants, which will inevitably destabilize entire regions. These human impacts are going to ripple aggressively across the planet.
Actually, we're already seeing a preview of this chaotic future today, all over the globe. Japan recently endured a record-breaking 100-degree Fahrenheit heat wave in May. Western Australia topped 120 degrees in January. Heat records fell all across South America, and the Atacama Desert, which is literally one of the driest places on Earth, flooded. Let that sink in. The extreme is becoming the everyday.
It all comes down to this number right here, which represents our current reality, 415. That is 415 parts per million of greenhouse gases currently in our atmosphere. This is the overwhelming scientific evidence of the invisible blanket we've wrapped around the Earth, actively driving the life-changing extreme weather events we just explored.
So knowing what we now know from the instrumental data, the deep historical proxies, and the shifting maps of our own hometowns, we're left with a critical choice. Are we going to start asking the right questions to understand our impact, or simply wait for the climate to dictate our future? The absolute most important step you can take right now is to talk about it. Because the more you learn, the more you understand how your personal actions ripple across our warming world.